All right, so this is more of the same from yesterday. However, the problems are just going to they might have more answers. They might be a little bit more difficult to look at, different things like that. Um, and then we'll do a couple word problems. Again, you guys, not difficult, but take your time with it. Make sure you're paying attention to decimals, stuff like that. Okay, so for the first one, here we go. Let's see how my computer does. I hope I entertain you guys. Um, so we have y equals x squared minus 5 and x squared plus y squared equals 25. So I'm going to take this x squared plus 5 and substitute it in here. So I end up with x squared plus x squared minus 5 squared equals 25. Okay, here we go. It already started. So all I did there was I substituted in my other y value. Now here, pay attention here. So this is what I meant by it's going to be a little bit more difficult today. You have x squared. This is really x squared minus 5 times x squared minus 5 equals 25. So you end up with x squared plus, when you multiply this out, x squared times x squared, remember, is x to the 4th because you add your exponents. Negative 5x squared minus 5x squared is negative 10x squared. And then negative 5 times negative 5 is positive 25. Okay, so just watch your exponents there. Here we go again, guys. Oh, God. Okay, so when you combine like terms, I'm going to do the same thing I did yesterday. I'm going to combine like terms and bring everything over. So if I were to subtract those 25s, they're going to cancel. My x to the 4th is the only 4th term. I have x squared minus 10x squared, so minus 9x squared when you combine like terms. And then, like I said, if you were to bring this 25 over, it would cancel to 0. So now, this looks like, oh, yuck, we haven't done this before. But if you factor out an x squared, then you're left with x squared minus 9 equals 0. Well, we can set this equal to 0 and this equal to 0. If x squared equals 0, technically we square root both sides, and x is plus or minus 0, but we know that's just 0. If x squared minus 9 equals 0, that means x squared equals 9, square root both sides, and x is plus or minus 3. So you technically have 3 answers here because you have 0, positive 3, and negative 3. You guys, I'm going to go back to this to solve for y. Okay. If x is 0 and I substitute 0 in, 0 squared minus 5 is negative 5. So that's one of my answers. If x is positive 3, 3 squared is 9 minus 5 is 4. And if x is negative 3, well, negative 3 squared is also positive 9 minus 5 is 4. So you have 3 answers there because of the 4th term. Okay. For number 2, same process. So you guys, if you want to pause it, it's actually a little easier because you don't have the 4th. But if you want to pause this, work through it, and then check my answer, that would probably be a really good idea, just to kind of check where you're at. So I'm going to take this negative 2x minus 4 and sub it in here. So I end up with x squared plus negative 2x minus 4 squared equals 32. So x squared plus, remember this is really negative 2x minus 4 times negative 2x minus 4 equals 32. So x squared plus negative 2x times negative 2x, sorry, there we go, is 4x squared. 8x plus 8x is a positive 16x. Negative 4 times negative 4 is a positive 16 equals 32. So we're going to combine like terms and bring everything over at the same time. You get 5x squared plus 16x and then minus 16 from bringing the 32 over equals 0. Okay, again, you could factor it. You could use quadratic formula. I would not complete the square here. In this case, you have 5x and x. This one is factorable. Okay, if you didn't want to waste your time playing around with it, you wouldn't have to. You should have 4 and 4. We want a positive and a negative here. So 5x times x is 5x squared. 20 minus 4 is 16. Negative 4 times 4 is negative 16. So your two x values are 4/5 and negative 4. So again, you guys, when we're graphing, decimals make more sense. So I'm going to say, okay, one of my x's is 0.8. Okay, if you go back and substitute 0.8 in, negative 2 times 4/5, or negative 2 times 0.8 minus 4 gets you negative 5.6. So you're just getting those from substituting in. Okay, then do the same thing with negative 4. If you take negative 4, negative 2 times negative 4 is 8, minus 4 is 4. So you have two intersection points here. One's pretty, one's not. Okay. Now, for this next one, you guys, you want to be careful here. It's the same process as we've been doing, but notice there's a 3 in front. So you're going to take this negative 3x minus 5 and sub it in right here. Okay. That 3 is going to stay. So what that's really going to look like is 75 equals 3x squared plus 3 times negative 3x minus 5 squared. Okay, really watch your order of operations here. You get 75 equals 3x squared plus 3. Seriously, why does my computer hate me? There we go. Plus 3. This is really negative 3x minus 5 and negative 3x minus 5. Okay. All right, so we get 75 equals 3x squared plus 3. Negative 3x times negative 3x is a positive 9x squared. 15x plus 15x is a positive 30x. Negative 5 times negative 5 is a positive 25. Okay. Now we need to distribute in our 3 here. You get 75 equals 3x squared plus 27x squared plus 90x plus 75. Okay, same deal, guys. We're going to combine like terms and bring everything to one side. If you subtract 75 over, it's going to cancel. So you have 0 equals 30x squared when you combine your squared terms. Hold on. Of course. There we go. 30x squared plus 90x. And like I said, the 75's cancel because you're subtracting one from one side to the other. So our GCF here is 30x. Works out nice and pretty. You end up with x plus 3. So all of that work, and really this isn't a bad problem at all. X is going to be 0 from the 30x, and x is going to be negative 3 from the x plus 3. I'm going to go back up here and sub in to that top equation. If x is 0, negative 3 times 0 is 0, minus 5 is negative 5, so that's one of our answers. And our other answer, if x is negative 3, negative 3 times negative 3 is 9, 9 minus 5 is 4. Two answers there. Okay? So those were basically the same as yesterday, maybe a little bit more work with the squaring. On the back, number 4, the only way it's different is you have to set up the system. So we've done these types of problems before. You just need to really pay attention to the wording. This says the sum, so we're adding, of the squares of two numbers. Okay, two numbers. We don't know what they are. We're going to use x and y. So we have to square both of them and add them together. So x squared plus y squared equals 25. That's what that sentence says, okay? The sum of the squares of two numbers, x and y, is 25, okay? Then it says the second number, so in this case, let's say y, is always equals one less than the other. That means I have to take the other number, which is x, and take one away, okay? So there's your system, and now you guys, it's the same deal. We're going to take this x minus 1 and substitute it in for y. And we have x squared plus x minus 1 squared equals 25. Okay, so x squared plus, if you multiply that out, you get x squared minus 2x plus 1 equals 25. So Combine like terms, we get 2x squared minus 2x. And if I bring my 25 over, that's minus 24 equals 0. Okay. Factor out a 2, and you're left with x squared minus x minus 12. Sorry, my handwriting is like something out of another planet right now. This is factorable. So you end up with x minus 4 and x plus 3 equals 0. Okay, x times x is x squared. Your middle term works out, and you get your negative 12. So that means x is going to be 4 and negative 3. Okay, you guys use your easier one of the two. If x is 4, now, okay, these aren't coordinates. I was about to write them as coordinates just because it's out of habit. We're not talking about a graph. You're just talking about what are the numbers, so you want to pay attention to kind of what we're asking. Here it's a little different. So if x is 4, then if I substitute that in, 4 minus 1 is 3. And if x is negative 3 and substitute that in, negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4. You don't need to worry about the last unit where you had to kind of pick and choose and whatever, and when did you pick and choose. This is just what are the numbers. They're both possibilities. You take them both. Okay. All right. 2 word problems, you guys. These are not difficult. They just have ugly numbers. It's okay. Number 5, a cannonball flies through the air following a parabolic path of y equals this quadratic in standard form. All right, and then it says that x is the distance. Okay, so x is distance that the cannonball travels from the base, and y is the height. Okay. The land slopes upward, so it's kind of like you're firing it into a hill, and can be modeled by the equation. So we have our second equation here, and it's linear. Y equals 0.15x. When will the cannonball hit the ground? Okay, so we want to know when the cannonball is going to meet the land, so we set them equal. Okay, y is the height, so we want our heights to be equal. We want them one to be hitting the other. So we have negative 0.002x squared plus 0.12x plus 2 equals 0.15x. You guys, this is just like the last example from yesterday. Okay, you just bring everything over to one side. In this case, it's going to be our 0.15x. So the only thing that will be affected is going to be your middle term. So 0.12 minus 0.15 is negative 0.03x plus 2 equals 0. Okay. Now, you guys could have brought everything over to the other side to make your x squared positive. That's totally fine. I honestly just didn't think about it. You guys, I'm going to look at this and think quadratic formula. So, x equals, the opposite of b is 0.03 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times your a. Okay, you guys, be really careful how you put this into your calculator. Okay, just take your time with it. I always do the discriminant first. Okay, so you should get, I'm going to put mine in my calculator. All right, you should get 0.03 plus or minus the square root of 0.0169. It's a pretty discriminant, all over negative 0.004. Okay, so if you put those in your calculator, you guys, remember you're going to do it twice. 0.03 plus the square root of 0.0169. Divide that by negative 0.004. One of your answers is negative 40. Okay. And if you do it again, your other answer is positive 25. Okay, so let's think about this. X is distance. contextually, we are not going to have a negative distance it travels from the base. So your 1x value is 25. Now you want to make sure you're answering the right question. This says, when will the cannonball hit the ground? So it's going to hit 25 feet from the base. Okay. And let's see. So at 25 feet from the base, that's where the cannonball should hit the ground. Now, if we put 25 feet in, we end up getting 3.75. So technically, it will hit 3.75 feet above where it started. Because it's sloping uphill. Okay, so it's still hitting the ground even though you don't have a value of 0. It's just saying from where it started to where it landed, it's a difference of 3.75 because of the uphill, and it's 25 feet away from where it landed. Okay. All right, last one, number 6. A car begins at rest and accelerates. Its distance in meters, c of t. Okay, so that tells me right off the bat that y is my distance. Can be determined as a function of time in seconds, t. So my t is my time in seconds, that's my x. So my first equation is that. And a second car is 4 meters ahead and traveling at a constant speed of 15 meters per second. And then it gives us that equation based on its data. And it says, how long after the first car accelerates will the cars be side by side? Okay, so we want the distances to be the same. And we are looking for the actual answer of x because we're looking for long. So that's time in seconds. So I'm going to take 3t squared, set it equal to 15t plus 4. Okay. So if we bring everything to one side, we have 3t squared minus 15t, minus 4 equals 0. I think this is factorable. We have 3t and t. We are going to end up, let's see, we need 16. So, is it factorable? Just kidding. It's not. All right, it's not factorable. I don't think. Whatever. I'm not going to waste time. I'm going to do the quadratic formula. And at least this is a quadratic formula without having to use a lot of decimals. You also could complete the square here. In this case, it's not too bad, but you do end up with an odd middle term. So let's just go ahead and do the quadratic. So 15 plus or minus the square root of negative 15 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 4 all over 2 times 3. Okay, so your discriminant ends up being, sorry about that, guys. You end up getting 15 plus or minus the square root of 273 over 6. So we get 2 answers from that. Okay, 15 plus the square root of 273 divided by 6 is 5.25. So x equals 5.25, and it's going to be an approximation because you're going to have to round it. And 15 minus the square root of 273 divided by 6 is negative 0.25. Sorry, these are approximations. There we go. All right, so how long after will they be side by side? Well, they're just asking for the x value. So obviously a negative doesn't make sense here. So after 5.25 seconds, they will be side by side. Okay. All right, your homework tonight is more practice. Again, you guys don't let the word problems scare you. Okay. Honestly, they're just ugly numbers, but that's life. You're not going to get pretty numbers. Okay. All your answers are on the back, so you can check them as you go. Please take your time with it. Okay. Come see me on Monday morning if you have questions.